Quinn Patterson disappeared after his release from prison and then reappeared in Northland, although Bruce Howard didn't know that until yesterday. He was known to police but seems to have avoided serious issues in the 3 decades since. His sister said he'd been relatively fine until recently, when his mental state started to deteriorate sharply. And yesterday at about 11:30 he called her cell phone and left her a message, although, as she told me this afternoon, she didn't hear it until sometime later.
Yes, he did call me, yeah. I didn't get to speak to him, though. He just left me a message on my phone, yeah.
He had phoned to say goodbye. Terrified by what was happening and aware that police were attending an incident where she knew he lived, Gloria called to get support.
And I had a girlfriend here sitting with me. I have to ask her to come. And she got a beep on her phone she seems to get she got the app with the news. She said, "Oh, Gloria, I don't think you'll want to know this," because she knew where Gwen lived. So she showed it to me. As soon as she showed it to me, I knew that was it.
In recent years, his sister says, Quinn Patterson had lived an isolated but relatively uneventful life. Gloria said he'd worked on self-control.
He'd given up drugs and alcohol 15 years ago, and he didn't touch anything. He didn't touch anything after that.
But in recent months, he'd become more isolated, more consumed by worries about his income, his personal life, and his tenancy. He'd become more cut off, speaking to fewer people.
Yes. Yeah, I would be the closest person to him, yeah. We talked at least once a week for about an hour. He'd call me and we'd talk for an hour. It's mostly about him, so that's how I kind of knew what was going on in his life, really.
There were good periods, his sister says, but fewer of them. And Gloria says he stopped talking to almost everyone.
Quite a bit of a loner. Part of that is his past has made him into a bit of a loner. But he really was improving himself until about a year ago. He was getting so much better. He'd been to counselling and stuff like that. But all of this just obviously became too much for him, and he was getting sick again physically. He had a bad skin condition a few years ago that was really, really terrible, and it was coming back, so that wasn't helping in the situation. Not getting enough sleep and that sort of thing. It's just a combination of things coming together, really. And as I say, I became aware of it about 4 weeks ago, and that he was thinking then of suicide. He talked about the possibility of counsellors, and he just told me a bit about the last few times he'd been to some counsellors, and there didn't seem to be any more to go in that direction.
Gloria says she urged him to get help, but she says while she became increasingly worried about her brother, she never thought he'd harm anyone else.
And I think he just got to a point where he just couldn't handle everything anymore, and did something terrible.
Wendy Campbell and her daughter Natanya. Gloria cannot believe it. Whatever despair drove her brother down and down, she cannot believe he killed 2 other people.
I'd just like to say to the other family that I'm really sorry that they've been involved in this tragedy.
That was Quinn Patterson's sister, Gloria, speaking to me this afternoon.